Good afternoon to you all. I'll skip the introduction part because that's already done by the moderators. But I think there are a couple of things which, as an introduction, I should be saying about Ramachandran Rajasekharan sir. The book that we are going to discuss is Sir's third book, which is Dawn to Dusk, Rain Dancing. The first two are Dewdrop in the Banyan Tree and Smiling in the Sleep. Now, what I found interesting in this entire book is it's a bouquet of life experiences. You would find love, you would find anger, angst. Sometimes Sir's response to the climate change, concerned about pollution, and it's a wide array, wide spectrum of topics which Sir has chosen. And you have around 40 poems written by Rajasekharan sir. It's all short and sweet. Now, having said all of this, I must at first congratulate you for having published this book. Now, as a first question, despite your parents, I understand, have been inculcating the habit of reading, they've supported you in terms of creating an interest in literature. I think it took almost 60 years to begin, or rather gain confidence to start writing poetry and publish it. Now, my first question is, why such a late entry?
Actually, this entry itself is somewhat accidental. I was a professional. For the first 20 years, I have been studying unlike present times, those times studying was one. So I was enjoying my studies. Then I stepped into my career. Then career was extremely focused, extremely technical. And on a technical, while on being a technical person, to focus on anything else, even focus on family is difficult. At times, our work became the passion. So one fine day probably, I saw a lady. I was going for a meeting from Cochin to Alleppey. I saw a lady. There was a block in between and the road was blaring with horns and all that. So in such a time was around 2:30 or 3. It was extremely hot outside. I was inside the car. So I could see a lady praying. A lady praying in this afternoon with such extreme focus, with a candle lit out, a roadside kapula. It was extremely hot. So that made me think, why do we pray? Why do we pray? Because we pray only at the times we need God. We don't pray always. So at that time, that inspired probably my first poem, which was the candle. I don't remember the exact title, but that's the first poem I wrote. Then I accidentally happened to join this international group. Then lot of interaction. Then suddenly I thought, I am being accepted as a poet. That was something different. So I had to balance with my profession, which is extremely, as you are aware, technical. From there to something so soft as poetry.
Yeah, sir, by the way, is a chartered accountant by profession and got into poetry, or rather started writing poems at the age of 60. So that's the context in which sir is speaking. Yeah.
So that is the first poem. Then see the problem with, when you are writing poem first, You have to show it to somebody, ask whether it is reading good and all that. And my friends were all professionals like me. I don't know how much they knew about poetry. I knew about poetry. These poems, but then it was my sister who told me there is a forum like this. You can try this. I started posting their poems. Then suddenly I am getting noticed. I got a feel of getting noticed. People are liking my poems. People are commenting about my poems. Then they are making suggestions. So then that gained in confidence, step by step. So in 2021 only I published my first book. So it is not actually, it's an accident. It's not a planned journey that way. And I don't think my poems are that conventional, schemed poems.
Another thing which struck me is the title that Sir has chosen, Dawn to Dusk, Rain Dancing. And it sounds quite rhythmic, and it is also quite an evocative title. Now, I think the title also suggests the passage of time. Is that what, does the title suggest the passage of time? Is that what made you write, or what is the connection of time and the dance which you've tried to kind of give it as a title?
This poem is a simple poem to read with. I tried to sketch an imagery.
Right.
On a rainy day, then I remembered my childhood days at my ancestral place and all that. There we have a lot of peacocks.
Okay.
So this cloudy time is their mating season.
Okay.
And they dance, that is very, very splendid sight. Iridescent colors and all that makes very splendid. So that is the point, where I thought, I will write a narrative about this. But there is something deeply layered into that.
Okay.
Lot of people have read it exactly different, exactly opposite as I intended. So I started noticing the layers. As you said that, dancing, dawn to dusk dancing itself is something, you are getting into a stage of ecstasy.
Right.
You are dancing with your hands stretched. That itself is a feeling. That feeling, probably many people have thought about, expressed that view about this poem. So I thought that I will use as a title poem. And it is catchy also.
I think poetry is something which allows or gives the freedom, the liberty to do a self-expression. And what I've also observed in the collection of this poetry is all 40 poems have an identity of its own. It's totally distinct. And I also look at it as Sir's reflections on his personal journey, because most of it is linked with some of the other personal life experiences. So what triggers you to write poetry, or what are the kind of experiences which compels you to write?
Poetry, comes spontaneously. You cannot really plot a poetry and write like a short story. But my poems are, most of people comments are story poems, because I tend to convey a story also with something hidden or layered meaning with it. So what I try to sketch an imagery first. This is not easy, but one fine morning it just comes out. So probably in a first draft I can make in 5 minutes or 10 minutes. Then it needs little time of polishing. I'm not a person who goes on reading my poem and refining it. That I'm not that kind of a poet. But then it comes just like that. You don't know. In one moment it flows.
All right. Also, without revealing much about this book, because then it breaks the suspense of the kind of theme that you have chosen. Now, how do, or what kind of insights? Were you trying to showcase through the imageries or the anecdotes or the anticlimax to several of the poems that you've written? What is it that you're trying to, convey through?
Convey is that, we are distancing from truth. We are distancing from reality. See, I try to convey as simply as possible the fact that, in, I think Thomas Hardy, in Christmas 1924, wrote a poem. It was a brevity which he said that in 1924, he said that on Christmas we celebrate peace. On Christmas we celebrate peace. And employ thousands of vicars to conduct the midnight mass. So we conduct the midnight mass. And after 2000 years, we have reached up to poison gas. Now if you see, after another 25 years, it reached up to atom bomb. Today there was no Christmas. This time there was no Christmas in Bethlehem, or the place he was crucified, Calvary, and West Bank is only a few kilometers away. So where are we going? Where are we going? From the life which was supposed to be peaceful, we travel into something of a trap. Like, what Agatha Christie has written, which I have read for the first time in Malayalam, which I like most, which was titled Maya Dweep, when I was a child. Then there were none. We are almost going that way. You see, one side you can see hunger, terrible hunger. We can see hunger, people dying, there is no money, and we still spend billions on acquiring weapons. There is a good piece of research work done by Stockholm International Peace Research Foundation. They said that during COVID, the armament industry went to a recession. From there, Ukraine-Russia war, it revived. And then thereafter, now you see that the war is going for the 100 days or plus. And what are we achieving? See, on one side we can see that this greenery which sustains us. We exhale carbon dioxide and they inhale carbon dioxide. They exhale. So one side you can see beauty, greenery, everything. On the other side you can see this type of destruction, this type of making money, commercialism. For a few dollars or few rupees, you go to what extent possible. So probably how far we have traveled from Christ is an example. How far we have traveled from Christ. Now Christ, if you see, was a very simple person. There was a famous film called Robe. You would have seen that. Christ was a poor man. He lived with poor people. And then he slept with poor people. He was only once in his life he got angry. We don't know about 18 years of his life. But thereafter, he was caught, found not guilty. Pilate was not even found him guilty, but he left him to the mob. Then he was crucified and humiliated in such with a crown of thorns and in such a manner with two ropes in either side. That gives a precise picture of how far we can travel in this life towards destruction. Destruction to the extreme. For what? For what? The armament industry is the total, probably India's, not India's, the world's richest industry commercially. This was written by Joseph Keller in Catch 22 long back during the regime of World War. So to convey all this, I use nature as a background, and secondly, I draw imageries. I draw imageries because why I use peacock? Peacock is something not to be seen normally. I have used the imagery of sparrow in somewhere. Sparrow is a house sparrow. They will come to places only where there is no pollution.
In fact, squirrel as well.
Eh?
In one poem, I read about squirrel.
Yeah. Squirrel also, see, they are in an ambience. They are not very friendly, but they enjoy the clean air. Now, house sparrow.
Yeah.
How many people have seen a house sparrow?
Right.
I had gone to Kotagiri last year. They showed me the squirrel because there was this house sparrow because there was no pollution there. But then we are distancing from everything good in life. What are we chasing? Money. Now I have written a poem called Hunger is Terrible. Hunger is terrible because I have seen circus as a child. I went to the circus with my father. Then the circus, there was a clown and there was an acrobat who just pushed something up which comes with sharp swords, and then you can see it landing just at the top of his head and between his armpits. So he has to be so precise. One small jerkin, he would have died. So I asked my father, Acha, why do they do it? Why do they play with their life? Then you can see that they play with their life because hunger is terrible. So to earn, a mouthful of meal, it's so sad. We are not giving enough priority to that.
So is there any specific, even though there are 40 in this book, is there any specific poem particularly you think is powerful or emotionally which you resonate with? And if I ask you to randomly pick one poem and read for the audience, which one would you be?
From this book?
Yes, sir.
No, I would say my favorite poem is Renuka, which is not in this book.
Okay.
That was actually an adaptation of my mother's poem, which was written in probably 60s, 65 or so. And Renuka was slain by Parshurama as Jamadagni ordered. For what? So, after slaying, 4 sons refused. 5th son slayed him. And after he refused, he probably asked. Renuka woke up and asked Parshurama, what do you want of me? Why do you beg for my life? Do you want a vassal for your father to bear his sons, look after his children, and cook his meals? This my mother wrote in 1961. Today it's called a feminist. Actually, it's a feminist. But I see it differently. How can a father ask his son to kill his mother? A very moral question in that. Now, in this book, I just took a poem which is sort of. There are 2 things here. One is abstract. That's about a painting done by my grandson. The other is Golden Cross. The priest furiously paced inside the church, glancing at the wooden cross hung on the altar wall. One wealthy parishioner promised to replace it with a golden cross. Sheep joined in chorus, dazed by golden glitter. Our priest refused straight. Rich led the delegation to higher levels, and the institutional hierarchy prevails. Seeing the shepherd distraught, Christ spake kindly, go and sleep. You must sleep well. I was nailed to a wooden cross and it was really heavy. Lord added with a chuckle, can anyone hammer a nail onto gold? The old priest went to sleep and woke early. His eyes were reddish and weary. At dawn, a crow cawed. Our priest entered the empty church hall for morning mass and saw a long march of parishioners heading to the church. The wealthy parishioner in the front, and the Lord on the cross laughed and spake. They could have carried a golden flag. Tense, the priest breathed fast and marched, entered the church. And then see, looking at the Christ, this priest is furious about the whole thing, and the Christ on the wooden cross, the priest removed the satin cloth, and the sexton rang the church bell, which was drowned in Lord's laughter. Scanning the gold cross, the priest noticed a hairline crack, precisely where the nail was hammered in. Can a cracked cross be consecrated? He exclaimed aloud, and after due examination, sheep shook in chorus. During the mass, the shepherd spoke about the crucifixion. Looking down, parishioners walked out slowly. Now, our priest knelt, praying in the silence of church, which I have written as a senator. Christ went on chuckling. Because Christ is not bothered. He is not least bothered whether he is housed in such a mansionly church. The priest wears, or the bishop or whatever, the pope wears such a ceremonial cloth. He holds a curved stick like a shaft. And all. Christ is not just bothered. Christ was crucified. When crucified, Christ was living among the poor. And he was betrayed for 30 silvers. See, these are things, which we are chasing. We are chasing wealth for what? I can understand chasing wealth for financial security. After a retired life, you have to live. But why do you need millions, billions and all that? You always chase profit.
Well, if I may choose the kind of themes which, just to generate a curiosity in what is there in this book, there are topics on questioning the fruitlessness of the prayer. There's something on COVID, the caste-class divide. He's also giving us hope through one or two of his poems. And our escape to nature, that's one, in Paradise on Earth is the escape to nature which all of us crave for. And he has written about women laborers. So it's a wide array of subjects which Sir has chosen in this collection of poems. And do you have anything to
I have written another poem here that called about abuse, child abuse.
Yes.
Yeah.
Would you wish to read that?
No, it's actually about abuse, and it is not very pleasing to hear rather than reading. I have also written many poems connected with my grandchild.
Right.
There is a poem called here, Wonderful Kiss. Yeah. It's my grandchild kissing me after I returned from hospital, a prolonged hospitalization, and doctor advised me to wear 2 masks. Now, when did the mask come to our life? The mask came to our life for the first time, except for doctors, when COVID came. The pandemic struck, we used it as a defense. So mask is a defense or probably the fear of unknown. I, as a grown-up adult, at this year, at this time of my age, I have fear of the unknown. What is going to happen to my children, my grandchildren? Where is the world going? And my grandchildren, as a child had no such fear. He just ripped off the mask and kissed me on me, very fondly, very affectionately. See, these are things. Or there is a poem here called Melted into Pool. After my mother's about a month or so, I didn't feel anything. For some days, I have actually prayed for her death. If there was euthanasia possible, I would have probably done that. But then it was very difficult because he had a brainstem stroke and she had lost her power of speech. Probably eyesight, I don't know. But then I realized, I was missing the most precious asset I had, the gem I had. No, actually, this is most of my poems I write in a direct way. I don't put in an abstract way. It's not that I don't write abstract poems. I have written abstract poems enough. That's the need of this time probably. But I try to sketch an imagery. Like probably in Malayalam, there is a poem by Vaidopilli. It's a simple poem about Kaka. Kaka we know crow. ഉള്ളിൽ അടുപ്പത്തു മൺകലത്തിൽ നല്ലരി വെള്ളിയായി തുള്ളിടുമ്പോൾ മേലെ മധുരക്കിഴങ്ങുവള്ളി പോലെ പുകപടർന്നരിടുമ്പോൾ അങ്ങാശു കോലായിലമ്മ ചോറിൻ ചങ്ങാതിമാരെ ചമച്ചിടുമ്പോൾ. അപ്പോൾ ചോറിൻ ചങ്ങാതിമാർ, the friends of life is making curries. ഉള്ളിൽ ചോറിൻ ചങ്ങാതിമാരെ ചമച്ചിടുമ്പോൾ ആഞ്ഞു കുതിർക്കുമോരുണ്ണി മുമ്പിൽ ഞാഞ്ഞൂളുമായി പടവെട്ടവേ. So it is like a child I feel when I write poetry. I am trying to see life with a different eye. That's all.
And of course, everyone has their own reading. Everyone has that. So maybe as a last question, because we have got the stinker as well. What is your expectation from the reader from this book? I mean, as a writer, what is it that you are guaranteeing the reader?
You read this book, you write, you like. I am sure you like it. If you don't like it, just send me a mail or a post. Then immediately I will respond. Because I am not a poet, who has trained in creative writing and all that. I am a poet who is born. I don't know where it was. I am just a poet.
Yeah. Thank you very much for the time and this opportunity, Kerala Literature Festival.
Thank you, sir.